one ride. One stranger. And one secret that could destroy everything he has ever known. The night Lagos breathed its restless noise, something unusual stirred in the heart of a man who had everything money could buy but none of the things his soul truly needed. Alexander Adeyemi, son of one of the richest men in the country, sat alone in the back seat of his own luxury car, staring at the city lights as if they held answers to the questions tormenting him. Outside, the world buzzed with exhaust fumes, vendor shouts, and the heartbeat of millions chasing survival. But inside him, there was only emptiness, an echo too loud to ignore. He leaned his head on the cool window glass, watching strangers go by. Couples laughing. Friends teasing one another. Workers dragging tired feet. People who lived ordinary lives yet carried a warmth he envied. He envied their freedom. Their simplicity. Their ability to love without suspicion or calculation. Life had become a prison made of luxury for him, and the bars were invisible but strong. Earlier that morning, he had overheard something that snapped something deep inside him. His ex-girlfriend, Anita, with her polished nails and perfect lashes, had been laughing with her friends at a private brunch. She didn't know he was close enough to hear. And maybe that made it worse, love him. Anita scoffed. I love his money. If Alex were a taxi driver today, do you think I would even greet him? Her friends laughed, clinking glasses, praising her honesty as if it were wisdom. Something in those words sliced into him more than any betrayal he had ever known. It wasn't the insult, it was the truth behind it. His whole life had been filled with people who loved his money more than his heartbeat. By evening, a decision had formed inside him. A strange, wild, liberating decision. He stepped out of the mansion, asked no one for advice, and walked into the city like a man shedding his skin. Hours later, that same night, his driver pulled up at a busy intersection filled with yellow taxis. The air smelled of roasted corn, dust, and the sweat of hard-working Nigerians. He opened the door slowly, the noise swallowing him whole. His driver looked confused. Oga, where are we? Alex inhaled deeply, feeling the scent of the real world fill his lungs for the first time in years. Somewhere I should have visited long ago. That was when he saw the old mechanic selling a battered taxi. It was faded, scratched, tired, a complete opposite of anything Alexander had ever owned. And yet, without hesitating, he bought it. He didn't even negotiate. The mechanic stared at him, half shocked. Half relieved. Oga, you sure say you fit drive this kind taxi? The man asked. Alex gave a tired, almost broken smile. I just need to drive. He took off his wristwatch, worth more than the taxi itself, and handed it to the mechanic alongside the cash. Then he removed his luxury shoes, placed them gently inside the old taxi, and slid behind the steering wheel as if stepping into a new life. The seat springs poked his back, the engine coughed like an old man trying to breathe, and the steering wheel vibrated like something possessed. But for the first time in years, his heart felt quiet. He spent the next week living in a tiny rented room with a mattress so thin the floor greeted his bones every night. He ate street food, fetched his own water, and drove passengers across the chaotic city. Some insulted him. Some thanked him. Some treated him as if he was invisible. And yet, each day taught him a lesson money had never given him. One evening, just as the sky shifted to a deep purple, and the air grew softer before the night storm, he saw her, standing by the roadside with a plastic bag in one hand and a weary look in her eyes. A young woman, dressed simply, her hair tied back, her face glistening with the tired beauty of someone who had fought through another long day. She hesitated before flagging down his taxi. Taxi, please. She called out, her voice soft but urgent. Alex slowed down and parked gently. He watched her through the mirror as she settled in. There was something about her presence, quiet yet strong, fragile yet determined. Unlike anyone he had met before. He didn't know why, but his heartbeat changed its rhythm. Where are you heading? He asked. Mainland Hospital, she replied, clutching the plastic bag. I need to deliver this medicine before visiting hours close. Her voice trembled slightly. He could tell she was worried, truly worried. Not about the cost, not about appearances, not about who he was. Just life. Real life. He nodded and began driving. The city lights flickered across her face, revealing eyes filled with a depth he couldn't quite understand. She kept glancing at the stopwatch on her phone, then the medicine bag, then the road, as if time were her enemy. You're nervous, he said gently. She hesitated, then let out a sigh she had been holding. My younger brother. He's sick. Very sick. And the hospital won't give the next dose until I pay for it. I managed to gather the money today, but traffic has delayed me. If I get there late, they won't administer it till morning. Something inside Alex tightened. He could feel the sincerity in her words, the helplessness, the fear. It was raw. Real, and painful. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. Don't worry, he said softly. I'll get you there in time. And he did. He drove with controlled precision, cutting through traffic with a grace only someone who once had chauffeurs could achieve. When they reached the hospital, she opened the door hurriedly but paused to look at him. How much is the fare? She asked. He looked at her for a long moment. Her clothes were worn, her eyes tired, her hands trembling not from fear but from exhaustion. She didn't have much, he could see that clearly. But she still reached into her bag to pay him. Nothing, he said firmly. Just go. Her eyes widened. She looked confused, grateful, and suspicious all at once. Please. I can pay. Even if it's small. He shook his head. Not today. She stared at him for a moment longer, searching his face as if trying to understand the kind of man who would give something for nothing. Then her expression softened, and she whispered, "Thank you. God bless you." And then she ran. He watched her disappear through the hospital doors, swallowed by the bright fluorescent lights inside. Something warm settled in his chest, a feeling he had not felt in many years. A quiet wonder. He didn't even know her name. But that night, as the rain began to fall and his taxi engine hummed in the dark, Alexander felt his life shifting gently, like a river changing direction without warning. He didn't know it yet, but that simple ride would become the beginning of a story that would shake everything he believed about love, destiny, and sacrifice, a story that would test him, expose him, break him, and rebuild him. And all he had was the memory of her soft voice saying, "God bless you," as she ran into the night. The journey had begun, and fate was already watching. The night after he dropped the mysterious young woman at the hospital, Alexander could not sleep. Not because of the heat in his small room or the sounds of generators humming across the neighborhood. But because her face kept returning to him, those worried eyes, that rushed thank you, the way she clutched the medicine bag as if her entire world depended on it. Something about her had reached inside him and awakened a part of his heart he thought had died long ago. He didn't even know her name. But he found himself wishing he had asked. By morning, he was back on the road, the city already alive with impatient horns and restless commuters. He drove for hours, but somehow every woman he picked up reminded him of her, the softness of her voice, the unspoken strength behind her fear, the honesty in her gratitude. It made him restless. It made him curious. It made him feel human again. Around noon, he parked by a roadside canteen to eat. The air was thick with the scent of stew, smoke, and freshly fried plantain. He bought a small plate, sat quietly, and watched people pass by. Mothers balancing baskets. Children in oversized uniforms chasing each other. Hawkers calling out their goods. Somewhere in that chaos, he sensed his place, not as a billionaire hiding from the world, but as a man learning how to live again. His peace, however, was short-lived. A black SUV pulled up across the street, tinted windows, polished rims, and the unmistakable scent of wealth and power. Alex froze. His heart thumped once, hard. The SUV looked exactly like the ones his family owned. He lowered his head slightly, hoping it wasn't what he feared. But when the door opened and a large man stepped out wearing dark shades and scanning the environment like a trained hound, Alex's breath caught in his throat. It was one of his father's security chiefs. "They're looking for me." His chest tightened. He stood slowly, pretending to adjust his shoes as his mind raced. If they found him, everything would end, his freedom, his quiet life. The chance to truly discover himself. And worse, they would drag him back to a world where everyone pretended to love him but loved his money more. He turned away, walking calmly, even though terror pulsed beneath his skin. He reached his taxi, gripped the steering wheel, and sat quietly, forcing his breathing to slow. The security man scanned the area again, then re-entered the SUV. The vehicle drove off, but slowly, as though searching for someone who didn't want to be found. Alex waited 10 long minutes before restarting his engine. He didn't drive far before fate intervened again. As he turned toward a quieter street, he saw her, the same woman from last night, running across the hospital gate, her scarf falling from her shoulder, her breath uneven. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. She crossed the road hurriedly, almost colliding with a passing bike, then slowed as tears filled her eyes. Without thinking, Alex stopped the taxi. She didn't notice him at first. She leaned against a wall, her shoulders shaking gently, one hand covering her face as if she were trying to keep herself from breaking down completely. He stepped out of the taxi and approached slowly. "Are you all right?" She startled slightly, wiping her tears quickly as if embarrassed. Then recognition flickered in her eyes. You're the taxi driver from yesterday." "Yes," he replied softly. "Is everything okay?" She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. She inhaled shakily, forcing herself to steady. "It's my brother. The doctors said the medicine wasn't enough. They need to run another test, but I don't have the money. I don't know what to do." Her pain hit him like a physical blow. Not because he was a billionaire who could easily solve her problem with a single phone call, but because she had no idea he had the power to help. To her, he was just a taxi driver, one of thousands. And the desperation in her voice was real, not exaggerated for pity. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Amara," she whispered. He repeated it softly in his mind, letting it settle. Amara. It fit her perfectly, simple, warm, gentle, and strong. He wanted to help her. Every part of him burned with the urge to ease her burden. But he couldn't reveal the truth. Not yet. Not until he was sure she saw the men, not the money. "Come," he said with calm assurance. "I'll take you anywhere you need to go." She nodded, still shaken, and slid into the passenger seat. He noticed her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her bag. She didn't speak for several minutes. Neither did he. But her silence told him more than words ever could. Eventually, she whispered, "Thank you." Again. He glanced at her. "You don't owe me thanks." A small, tired smile touched her lips. "I don't meet people like you often." He felt something warm, something dangerous, something he wasn't sure he deserved. But before he could respond, his phone vibrated in his pocket. Only one set of people had this number now, his father's security team. His stomach dropped, he ignored the call. Another call came, then another. Amara noticed his expression. "Is everything okay?" He forced a smile. "It's nothing." But inside him, alarm bells rang loudly. They were close. Closer than he wanted to believe. As he drove down the long stretch of Hospital Road, something caught his eye in the mirror, a familiar black SUV trailing slowly behind them. His heart slammed against his ribs. They found him, and Amara was sitting right beside him. If they stopped him now, the lie would break, the disguise would crumble, and the life he had begun to build, quietly, tenderly, painfully, would end before it even began. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He had two choices: stop and face the world he ran from, or drive deeper into a life he never expected to want. He breathed once, then accelerated. The black SUV followed, and just like that, the quiet story of a billionaire turned taxi driver and the woman who saw his humanity began to twist into something far more dangerous than love alone. The city had quieted for a brief moment, as if holding its breath, but Alexander's heart was racing faster than ever. The black SUV that had been trailing him yesterday was now back, weaving through the Lagos traffic with terrifying precision. He tried not to panic, but every honk, every flash of a passing headlight felt like a warning. He stole a glance at Amara, who was clutching her bag, unaware that her life had just brushed up against danger again. "Are we okay?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. He forced a calm he didn't feel. "Yes. Just. Traffic is worse than usual today." She nodded, but her eyes betrayed her unease. She didn't know he was lying to protect her. And he couldn't tell her, not yet. The moment she realized he was more than just a simple taxi driver, her trust would shatter, and the fragile connection they had built could vanish. Minutes later, a sharp turn brought them into a narrow street, quieter than the main roads, the kind where secrets can hide. Alexander's instincts screamed at him to push the taxi faster, to shake the black SUV that had begun to follow relentlessly. But his mind also reminded him, he couldn't risk her safety. Not Amara, not the woman whose gentle strength had already rooted itself deep inside him. Then she spoke again, her voice small, almost a whisper. I feel like someone is watching me." Her words froze him. She had Northwest idea how close she was to the truth. No one's watching you, he said firmly, though his fingers tightened on the steering wheel, but she didn't look convinced. Her eyes darted to the rearview mirror. I don't know why, but I feel like trouble is near. Alexander wanted to reach out, to reassure her, but he knew any sudden movement might alarm her, or worse, tip off the people behind them. He made a split-second decision. He would lead them somewhere public, somewhere crowded. Somewhere he could think. He turned onto a busy street, weaving past hawkers, street children, and rushing commuters. The black SUV followed at a careful distance, almost taunting him, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to choke on. And he realized, for the first time in years, that money, power, and privilege couldn't protect him here. Only wit, courage, and instinct. As they approached a small, dimly lit market, Alexander saw an alley on the left. It was narrow, almost invisible unless you knew it was there. Without hesitation, he turned sharply, tires screeching slightly against the uneven pavement. He ducked low behind a wall of stacked crates as the SUV roared past the entrance to the market. Amara's hand found his. She squeezed it gently, startled, but not afraid. What? What just happened? She whispered. Nothing, he said softly. Just a shortcut. Her eyes searched his face. You're hiding something. He swallowed, the truth burning in his throat. He wanted to tell her everything, about who he really was, about the life he had left behind, about why he was in this taxi, pretending. But he couldn't. Not when danger was so close. Sometimes, he said carefully, people hide things to protect others. Her gaze lingered on him, a flicker of understanding and suspicion mingled in her expression. Then she nodded, seemingly satisfied for the moment, though he knew she would keep asking questions later. They drove on in silence. The rain had started to fall lightly, pattering against the windshield. The sound was soothing but fleeting, because Alexander knew the calm would not last. Something told him that the black SUV wasn't just a random threat, it was a message. Someone was hunting him. Someone who wanted to drag him back into the life he had fled, exposing not just himself, but potentially Amara too. And then it happened. A figure stepped into the middle of the narrow street ahead, waving frantically. Alexander slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched. Amara's bag tumbled to the floor, and she gasped, clutching his arm. The men ran toward the taxi. You. Stop. He yelled. Alexander's instincts kicked in. He floored the accelerator, swerving around the men as he screamed behind them. But as he glanced in the rearview mirror, the black SUV had reappeared, cornering them. Amara's face was pale now, eyes wide, heart pounding against his shoulder. Who are they? She cried. Alexander swallowed hard. People from my past, he said, voice low, that I wish I could leave behind. And in that moment, as the rain blurred the streetlights into streaks of gold and red, Alexander realized something terrifying. Running wasn't enough anymore. Protecting Amara meant confronting the life he had tried to escape, and if he failed, it wouldn't just be him who paid the price. The rain grew heavier as the taxi sped deeper into the night, each drop striking the windshield like a drumbeat of danger. Alexander felt his pulse pounding in his neck, yet he forced himself to stay calm. Amara was trembling beside him, her breath sharp and uneven, her fingers gripping the edge of her seat as though reality itself were slipping away. He turned down another street, then another, weaving through backroads only people who lived like shadows would know. Finally, when he was certain the black SUV had lost their trail, he pulled into an empty parking lot behind a closed supermarket. The engine hummed softly, the only sound in the overwhelming quiet. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Amara whispered, Alexander. What's happening? He froze. She had never called his full name. She had only ever known him as Alex, the quiet taxi driver who asked too few questions and gave too much kindness. But now, with fear twisting her voice, the distance between them felt unbearable. He swallowed hard. Those people. They're looking for me. She stared at him, rainwater glistening on her lashes. Why? Who are you? He wanted to look away. He wanted to lie. But something in her eyes, fear mixed with trust, confusion mixed with hope, held him captive. He couldn't meet her gaze without feeling a sharp pull inside his chest. I'm just someone trying to live a simple life, he said quietly, her brows knitted. Simple lives are not chased by tinted SUVs. there it was. The truth he had been running from had reached the woman he least wanted to involve. He clenched the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. I can't explain everything now, he whispered. Not yet. It's dangerous. For me? She asked, voice trembling, for both of us. Silence draped over them again, thick and heavy. Amara turned slowly toward the window, watching the rain slide down the glass like falling tears. She hugged herself, trying to steady her breathing. He could see the storm inside her, fear, doubt, and something deeper that she wasn't ready to name. Alexander opened his mouth to say something, anything, but just then, her phone vibrated sharply. She scrambled to answer it, her voice breaking before she even spoke. Hello. Yes. I'm on the way. What? No, please don't. Don't move him. I'm coming. The call ended. She sat frozen for 3 seconds, then burst into tears, her hands shaking violently. My brother. She whispered, choking on her own breath. He collapsed. They need to move him to intensive care, but they won't do it until I sign the consent papers. They said if I delay. Her voice dissolved. The rest of the sentence never came. Fear swallowed her words whole. Alexander's heart clenched painfully. This was no time for secrets. No time for lies. Whatever chase he was running from, whatever danger followed him, everything else could wait. Her pain eclipsed it all. Let's go, he said gently. We'll get there. Amara nodded, wiping her tears with hurried, trembling fingers. He started the engine, and the taxi rumbled back to life, shaking slightly as if sharing the tension inside them. The road to the hospital felt longer than ever. Every red light seemed too slow, every passing car too loud. The air between them was thick, not with fear anymore, but with raw urgency. Amara clutched her hands so tightly they trembled. Alexander kept glancing at her, seeing her chest rise and fall in uneven breaths. Without thinking, he reached over and placed his hand on hers. A small gasp escaped her lips. She turned to him, her eyes wide, not in fear this time, but in something softer, more painful. Vulnerability. You're not alone, he whispered, her fingers tightened around his, just slightly. Just enough. And in that brief, silent moment, something shifted between them, something warm, fragile, dangerous. They reached the hospital in record time. Amara jumped out before the car had fully stopped. Alexander followed closely, unable to leave her side. Inside, the fluorescent lights reflected his worn clothes, his tired face, the disguise he had chosen. But despite all that, people noticed something different in his eyes, the look of a man who would fight the world for someone he cared about. They reached the ward. Amara's younger brother lay unconscious, machines beeping steadily beside him. Her knees buckled as she rushed to his bedside, grabbing his cold hand. Alexander stood quietly behind her, watching the weight of her world crush her shoulders. A nurse handed her the consent papers, and she signed with trembling fingers, tears dripping onto the page. When it was done, she leaned against the wall, sliding slowly down until she was sitting on the floor, her hands pressed over her face. Why is everything happening at once? She whispered in a broken voice. Alexander knelt beside her. Because life is cruel, he said softly. But you're stronger than you think. She looked at him with eyes full of pain yet mixed with something dangerous. Trust, Alex. She breathed. I don't know who you truly are. But tonight, I needed someone. And you were here. Her vulnerability cut through him like a blade. He wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to hold her. He wanted to protect her from every storm life threw her way, but as he leaned closer, ready to speak, ready to open the door he had kept locked, a deep, angry voice echoed behind them. Well. So this is where you've been hiding. Alexander froze. Amara turned. Standing in the hallway, drenched from the rain and seething with fury, was the last person Alexander ever wanted to see, and the secret he was hiding was about to crack open. Morning came too quickly, the night's chaos still clung to the air, like smoke after a fire. Amara barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the gang rushing toward Alex. The gun. The frantic sprint through the dark streets. The way he protected her as if his own life meant nothing. Her heart was still racing when she stepped out of her room and found Alex sitting alone outside, staring at the rising sun. His shirt was torn. His lip slightly cut, and for the first time, he didn't look like a taxi driver at all. He looked like a man carrying a life he never wanted anyone to see, Amara approached him slowly. Alex. What really happened last night? Who are those people? He didn't turn. People from a life I've been running from. Silence fell between them, then he exhaled deeply, as if pulling something heavy from his chest. Amara. I haven't been honest with you. Her breath caught. This was it. He finally turned to face her. His voice was steady, calm, but filled with something she had never heard before. Truth, my real name is Alexander Okafor. I'm not a taxi driver. I'm the heir to Okafor Holdings. She froze. That's not funny, she whispered. It's not a joke, he said quietly. My father owns the conglomerate. I'm his only son. And those men? They were hired by my cousin, the one trying to take everything from me. Amara just stared at him, her world tilting. But why hide? Why pretend to be poor? He swallowed hard. Because when you're rich, everyone treats you like a walking bank account. No one sees you. No one cares who you really are. I wanted one part of my life to be real. And then I met you. Her heart thudded painfully. Everything began to make sense. The calm confidence, the mysterious men, the way trouble followed him, the expensive scent she once noticed on his clothes, the night he paid her brother's hospital bill without blinking. She stepped back slowly. So everything you told me, everything you did, all of it was a lie? No. Alex rose to his feet. The disguise was a lie. But my feelings, every moment I spent with you, that was real. Her voice trembled with hurt. You should have told me. I was scared, he whispered, scared that once you knew who I was, you'd look at me like everyone else does. Tears burned her eyes. Last night he risked his life for her, but today she felt like she didn't know him at all. Alex. I cared about you. I trusted you. She shook her head painfully, but trust can't survive secrets. He stepped forward. Please, I need space. Her voice cracked. I need to think. Alex froze. And in that moment, he realized he might lose the only person who ever looked at him without seeing money first. He slowly nodded. I'll give you all the time you need. She walked away. Each step heavy like she was walking through water. Alex watched her go, his heart breaking quietly. For the first time in his privileged life, he felt truly powerless, not against kidnappers, not against enemies, but against the fear of losing the one woman who mattered, as she disappeared around the corner. Alex whispered into the morning air, Amara. I didn't come to you to be loved as a billionaire. I came to you to be loved as a man. But she was already gone. The truth was out, the disguise had crumbled, and love, if it survived, would have to rise from the ashes. But this story is far from over, because while Amara walks away with a broken heart, someone else has been watching from the shadows, someone who knows Alex's true identity, someone who isn't ready to let him go. What happens next will shock you. Part 2 is coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the twist. Your support means everything. See you in the next one.